Is it like, weird to stand in front of everybody?
That's the song push.
Hold the phone.
No. It's actually quite fun. Yeah.
Sit somewhere
And you'll like
else.
line up with all the cities. No, come over
Okay.
here.
Good.
Line up with all the cities. And it's so fun. You can ask them, playing the flag.
Huh?
Flag at AWC. It's, and then we take pictures of you and video. Yeah.
Put it back in, and that was like a mistake.
No.
There was- Uh-oh.
I like, cause I missed like the first two like days.
Okay.
Cause I work on that first.
All right, let's bring this city council meeting for April 16th, 2024 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Carter,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Swatman,
Present.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Present.
Councilmember Fullerton,
Here.
Councilmember Hubler,
Here.
Councilmember McClymons,
Here.
Councilmember Roach.
Here.
Yes. Good. Okay, we have an agenda modification. Councilmember Baldwin asks to add AB 24-28, Resolution R 24-28 as a discussion and action item to the agenda as item F. Is there a motion?
Motion. Oh, second.
So moved. Second?
Yes, sir. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councilmember Baldwin.
Yeah, just so the public is aware, this is the same thing that I talked about last week in regards to the safety plan for Allen York Park. We are trying to get those security officers hired in time for Memorial Day, which I believe this year is May 27th. Yes, Monday, May 27th. And so unfortunately, this is a bit time sensitive. And so we're hoping that instead of on the 23rd, for this to be discussed and approved tonight. And that is all.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Passes.
Were you added to the agenda?
Yeah, added, yeah, as item F. Okay, we'll now continue our discussion on the council member vacancy that was held over from last week's meeting. So last week, Councilmember Fullerton nominated Teresa Karen, Councilmember Hubler nominated Jesse Levitt, and Councilmember Roach nominated Chris Blanco and Aaron Davis. All four nominees received a 3-3 tie vote. Is there any discussion before we go into executive session to discuss qualifications? No. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and understanding during this process. We greatly appreciated. We will now go into an executive session for, I'm going to say 30 minutes. Been hard to guess what, how much time everybody's going to need here. But we'll say 30 minutes per RCW 42.3.0.1101H to discuss the qualifications of a candidate for appointment to elective office with action to follow. Thank you. Back.
She's asking. I wasn't gonna. Doesn't feel. That doesn't feel.
This is on.
I can hear everything. I think it's amplifying in here, but it's muted on there.
Okay.
How was Mexico?
That was awesome.
Great.
Yeah, it's just
Groundhog has seen his shadow.
Council has asked for another 10 minutes.
We have to wait. It's 2 minutes are out.
We can't come back early.
No, well, because the public is expecting you to be, here when they're here.
Oh, what if you say it's 30 minutes and then it was only 5?
Then you
Because we
gotta-
did 30 on the first shot.
And so now we need the extra, now it's like a minute. In case there's someone. running
somebody
out
went to the
or
bathroom.
Whatever.
It did?
If somebody went to the bathroom.
Oh,
Stay there.
yes.
in here.
That happens all the time anymore.
Too far away.
Yeah, not,
That's
not as much anymore.
old school.
Yeah.
Are you going like around again like you did last time?
Yeah, there's a list in here as far as who goes
Pre-programmed.
first or whatever.
Pre-programmed,
Yeah.
oh.
It'll all bounce.
Is there a access to
first.
that list?
Oh,
Are you
yeah.
serious?
You're the B.
Yeah,
It's in alphabetical order.
yeah, it is.
Kind of cruel. Who did that?
You
Who
didn't know?
decided that?
We can talk later.
I don't know.
We should have gone by the last letter of my last name.
We good?
The last letter of the first.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we're back. All right, before we just start discussions and voting, I want to remind council that it's your duty to appoint a replacement council member, and you must have 4 votes to do so. Is there any discussion? The 4 nominations from last week are still on the floor. Unless there is a motion to reopen nominations to include additional nominees, we will move to voting in the order of nominations that were made last week. Did anyone want to reopen nominations to add additional applicants for consideration? Okay. We'll now vote by roll call, so the clerk can track the voting. We will start with the nominees in order of nomination. So the first one will be for Teresa Karen. Please state aye or nay when called upon. Councilmember Baldwin,
Aye.
Councilmember Fullerton,
Aye.
Councilmember Hubler,
Nay.
Councilmember McClymans,
Aye.
Councilmember Roach,
Nay.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Nay.
So we're at a tie. We'll move on to Jesse Lovett. Councilmember Baldwin,
Nay.
Councilmember Fullerton,
Nay.
Councilmember Hubler,
Aye.
Councilmember McClymans,
Nay.
Councilmember Roach,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Aye.
Or another tie. Mr. Chris Blanco, Councilmember Baldwin,
Nay.
Councilmember Fullerton,
Nay.
Councilmember Hubler,
Aye.
Councilmember McClymans,
Nay.
Councilmember Roach,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Aye.
All right, we're to Aaron Davis, Councilmember Baldwin,
Aye.
Councilmember Fullerton,
Nay.
Councilmember Hubler,
Aye.
Councilmember McClymans,
Aye.
okay. Councilmember Roach,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Aye.
Okay. So we made it. Aaron Davis is going to be our next council member. Congratulations. I want to say thank you to all of the candidates. You all were amazing, and there's a reason that we took so long going through all of these candidates. So thank you all for your time and effort into this whole ordeal. Councilmember Baldwin.
Yeah, I would also like to, because really these candidates, these 4 that we have here are excellent. And so just wanted to encourage them to further continue coming into government. We have, I think, some things on the planning commission
Yes.
Yeah, we have one spot there, and that would really give you some insight and get your feet wet and things like that. And so I highly encourage you to do that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Davis, please come forward and we will swear you. in.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, anybody want pictures?
Please take a
Get in the
picture.
right spot.
Here's the swear
Mhm.
person.
I'll have you raise your right hand. I, Andy,
Yeah, yeah, please do.
Aaron Davis,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
and laws of the state of Washington
and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and law and all local ordinances,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform and discharge
perform and discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of council member
of council member
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Am I over here today? Both the same thing, we could sign one. So, and then sign this one for the city. And then you can take your seat at the desk over there.
Now you're
Thank
stuck.
you. Yeah,
can't
now you're
leave.
here, yeah.
He didn't read the agenda apparently with a 50-minute presentation from planning. Maybe the shortest council member.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Ever.
I don't know if this is possible, but I would like to make a motion to table discussion item AB 24-33. I don't know if that is a time sensitive thing, but it looks like we already have another presentation and some other things that we have to do as well.
Is there a session? Is there a second?
I second that.
Second discussion? Mr. Sullivan, do you have something to say for us?
We are kind of stacked up on the comp plan and we kind of are holding still until decisions are made on this first item. So we'll have to push everything that we had already had on the agenda. So there will be a night in which there'll be two large segments of the comp plan having to come to council.
Like 50 minutes each.
Yes.
Well, our,
Councilmember Hubler.
What, I mean, if this one is more important, would it be feasible, in your opinion, to table the Allen York Ball Field Playground 5
I don't,
presentation? Or
no.
is that one is just as important?
they're just as important. And we can move it. It's just we're gonna have to hold on the comp plan until we get direction on this, because this is what serves as the basis for the comp plan update going forward. We're fine doing that. You were asking kind of what the ramifications were. About once or twice a month, we're going to have 40 to 50-minute presentations on the comp plan because we have to, by December, completely re-adopt the comp plan. And so not wanting to bring the council our presentation is about 20 minutes. It's the council discussion that's budgeted into that 50 minutes. And we just know this one there's some meaty subjects in there. We're fine kicking it. I'm just letting the council know that there will be that possibility because we have to be done and adopted before the end of December, which means we have to do the public hearings before then. And we're trying to get a little bit of ahead because you've got the budget. So we might it could have impacts down the road. I can't say how much, but it kind of has a stacking effect.
But I will say, I just talked to Ms. Harris, and the Allen York Ball Field deal is really going to be a 5 minutes or so of presentation. The estimates are here for council discussion, apparently. So that may actually go much quicker than what we think.
All the way until when?
December 31st.
Okay.
Or this is,
I mean,
see, we've taken.
I guess my ask is that, yes, I think sometimes discussions do go long and I think they're important that we are talking back and forth to each other. But I guess my request is just for maybe some succinct responses would be really helpful.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Those
Fair
are,
enough. Deputy Mayor Swatman.
wonder,
Yeah, I withdraw my motion.
have these, you can't. without a second, and I was a seconder, so wait.
Oh,
Um,
sorry,
the,
sorry about that.
Has they've been through planning agency already,
Mhm.
right? So, and they've had their public hearing over there and then, but they haven't been through CDC yet?
No, we went to CDC earlier in the month, and because of the time constraints that we're under and the number of things that we have to bring forward, CDC recommended that we bring all comprehensive
Oh,
planning
directly
items
here
directly
or
to
something?
council.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was like the new chairperson thought that they wanted to deal with them first and pare them down, or if they're just okay that they fully come here. So, you know, because that was my only thought, that the CDC could pare that down. But if you're saying it's shorter anyways, I guess it's kind of a non.
Yeah, our presentation's about 10 minutes. I mean, it's up to the council. I was just trying to
It'll be long.
weigh in kind of what the impact could be, Councilmember Baldwin.
Cool. Okay,
May I make another request?
that's fine.
Well, we have to deal with the motion, right?
Oh, yes.
Did you want to withdraw?
Yes, I withdraw my motion.
Did you want to?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, motion's withdrawn. Councilmember Baldwin.
Is there a way to get Councilmember Davis like this enormous packet? Because he's not looking at anything.
Would be helpful.
Email him.
He doesn't have a device.
Trying to find it in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is,
Right?
it is not in there.
We actually don't.
That's right.
It is not in here.
What?
Okay. Any other discussion? We move on? Okay. All right, so now we have a presentation on the Allen York Park Ball Field 5 Playground. I'll turn it over to Interim Public Services Director, Mr. Sullivan.
In order of keeping it brief, I'm going to turn it right over to Ken Gill to give the presentation to keep us on track tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, council. Thank you for not tabling. So excited.
Yeah, me too.
Present this to you, so we'll make it quick. The big reason why I'm excited to present, and a lot of planning and effort has been going on this topic since 2018. So you may ask, why did I bring you a picture of piled gravel in Allen York Park, 2 black toilet paper rolls? But this is an area that has been set aside for your play equipment. Okay, and this is play equipment that we've purchased, I believe, and understand since 2018. It is sitting in Connex boxes. There's about 5 of them out there, and I personally went out there, opened them, looked, yep, they're there, outside of the Lions area.
Closer to the microphone, the people
Okay.
online apparently can't hear. Thanks.
So, the next slide, please. Is that fine? Okay, okay. Okay, there's a picture, okay. Before I get to this slide, I want to make sure and introduce you to the real people that have been moving this forward. And it's Leslie Harris, our city administrator, and Lindsay Irwin with Great Western Recreation. So I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay to talk about the park layout.
Inclusive playground. Now, this is a thing. We started this back in 2016. It is a fully inclusive unit. It's at the ramp. Everything on there is accepted. To get the service underneath the and proposed. Unitary service.
I don't think it's
Not working.
changed.
Pretend it's a banana.
Yeah, right up there.
Really, there you go. Close.
Little louder.
Just talk loud.
Talk loud.
So we're, right now, the thing that you haven't ordered is these. Tyler, are you? Device. So there's actually a couple of slides that show different angles of the playground, so you get slides and the different components. You? I know it's, okay, thank you. Yep, that actually works. So, so I'm really excited because when our last discussion, we actually had, okay, we have $80,000 in our parks budget, and this project to change the scope to bring in tiles was gonna be, about 160, it changed the project from 80,000 to 160. So we were, at that time, we didn't know how we were gonna fill that gap, right? So we went out, I submitted a 2024 local community project funding application to the state. I'd like to thank Representative Stokesbury and Robertson, and then also Senator Fortunato for pushing our project forward. So our project's included in the 2025 funding. So that's very exciting. So we will be seeing that money. But that actually fills the gap that we need. And so as you can see, the cost estimate with game time is about 161. Then we have some money set aside for our performance bond, and then the city site preparation. So prep work that our crews need to do. So that, with the contingency is about 227. We have 80,000 within the parks budget, and then with the state appropriation of 151, it actually is a little bit reduced with the administrative fee for Commerce, but they will actually come out to be about the same. So, but the total there is 231. So we're really excited that we were able to get the funding to hopefully help get your permission to move this project forward. So really, we're here today just to present on this, and then hopefully get what the next steps would be if you guys approve it, is to bring forward the contract we'll have with Game Time, and then also with the Department of Commerce, and we'll be bringing those forward once we have the documentation from Commerce. So with that, we're here, we can answer any questions or, yeah.
Councilmember, Deputy Mayor Swanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so if those that don't know, CDC has had us a couple of times in the CDC. The maintenance folks were recommending this kind of a situation with the tiles to lower maintenance costs and everything for long-term reliability of this play set. And we didn't have the funding to do it back then. Kudos to staff to going out and finding funding to make this happen. So this is another yet an example of an excellent value that staff is providing to the public to come up with grants to do these projects. I fully support this particular project. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Oh, right there.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Refinements.
Yeah, so I've opposed spending $200,000 to install a playground set we already own on a piece of property that is already ready for it. You can see that most of the cost is going to the surface, and I did talk to somewhere around 2,000 residents this last summer that all thought likewise. They're like, why would we spend $200,000 to install playground equipment on a piece of property we already own that's already ready to get it? Mm-hmm. So you got to ask yourselves that question when you go to do this. For me, looking at this realistically, the reason is ADA compliance, right? We're going to spend $161,000 to make this an accessible playground, right? And so then the question you should have for that is it worthwhile making playgrounds accessible? In my mind, the short answer is yes. But the real question is this the only way to make it accessible by spending $150,000 on it? I mean, whether I tax people locally for that $151,000 or I tax the state, I'm still taxing them for it. It's still their tax dollars, right? So it doesn't matter to me where the money comes from. And Phil and Drew, you really should have called me and talked to me about this, because I would have told you where I was at. The real question is there a better way to make this ADA compliant? That's what you have to ask yourself. So I'm not going to support this because I want an answer to that question. I don't. I really have a hard time believing it's going to cost $161,000 to make a playground ADA compliant.
That's all.
Councilmember Baldwin. Oh,
Um,
okay. Councilmember Baldwin.
yeah, I did have a bit of pause in looking at the cost of $231,000. And I agree with Councilmember McClymonds that even though there is state appropriation, and I think it's amazing that the staff went out to get that, but that is still money from taxpayers. I mean, we know where that money comes from when government is giving it away. And so the $231,000 for a play set does give me pause. Is there a comparison as to how much play sets normally cost to be installed? It's through government or through private agency? Is it because it's government?
Please come up. So the people online. Need to go.
Okay,
That's okay.
this one, sorry. Mostly all through government. The majority of the work that we do is with schools, counties, parks, cities, any kind of public entity. I mean, and it's unfortunately not cheap. But it does last a long time. I mean, this is all commercial grade stuff that's going to be there for a very long time. The benefit of tiles over some other surfaces is not only that it's fully ADA compliant, there's no upkeep. Once it's in, when you're putting in wood fiber, like the wood chips, that's a very low upfront cost. However, it needs to be topped off. It needs to be maintained on a regular basis. And studies have shown that over time, the return on investment, it ends up costing you the same in the long run. And it's not always compliant. A unitary surface is always going to be compliant. If you've ever been to a playground and seen under swings or slides where that wood fiber gets kicked out, if a child were to fall into that space, it doesn't have the right amount of depth. So it does not have the fall attenuation that when you put in a unitary surface like tile, it's not going to change. That fall attenuation will always be there. So
I guess to the council, I'm not totally opposed for swings to have surfaces kicked out from underneath because I know I was fine as a child. But my question then becomes, how much are the tiles in comparison with this project? Is that just the game time quote and the tiles are that much, or?
that's, I believe, the tiles and the installation, all the full installation of the equipment as well.
Okay, but like how much are the tiles in comparison to
Tiles,
the rest of the?
Don't have the quote in front of me, so I apologize. Tiles tend to be around $20 a square foot.
Oh.
I know when I was on planning commission, this was something that we had talked about, volunteers helping to install this. I don't know if that, I mean, with having another organization, I know I was told it's because of insurance purposes that a professional has to do it, but is it possible that volunteers can help so that budgets can be brought down?
We had actually looked into that at the beginning because that's what we went into this project thinking it could be a volunteer project, but just with the type of installation with the footings and the steps it had to take, we have to take, it didn't make sense to go volunteer route.
That is correct. A really good deal now compared to what it costs these days. At the time that you purchased the equipment, you got a 50% matching grant. So it was half off essentially. Now equipment has gone up about 35% since COVID, the cost of equipment. So if you were to buy if you were to purchase that now without a grant, I mean, I'd have to look at the numbers, but it would be, and I probably can't do math that quick, so I apologize, but it would be a lot more. I mean, we go into most projects, a brand new park's going to cost at least $300,000 for equipment and surfacing and install and all those things.
And we did, initially, we had gone out, our previous city engineer had received quotes. And so this was very competitive to what we were receiving before. So, yeah.
Your Hubler.
Sorry, guys. I would say I would support this because we have been sitting on this equipment for so many years and it has been sitting in a container, and it was approved by council in 2017 to purchase it, I think.
Yeah.
And it's been sitting for that many years, just being untouched. And to be able to finally get it used, where we've already, as a city, spent the money to purchase it, I think just getting it in, getting it done, and then moving forward with whatever we choose to do with the next parks. I feel like it's just time to get it in and being used rather than sitting there.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I would second what Councilmember Hubler is saying. That would be the reason why I supported. I think moving forward, really considering more of the public-private partnerships might be beneficial to the city cost-wise. Yeah.
Councilmember McClymons.
Yeah, and I want to commend the staff for going out and applying for the grant and getting it miraculously. That's excellent work. It's you know, it's just unfortunate. I don't think it, you know, I think we're all suffering from sticker shock.
Mhm.
I mean that, and
Us too.
you know, yeah, anyway. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay, move on to review of council minutes. Councilmember Fullerton and Councilmember Hubler.
I did send in, I believe, a couple of changes. So those should have been made.
Okay.
And I personally didn't see any, so I'm glad that there are two eyes seeing things.
Exactly.
I like this whole two eyes on things.
All right.
Yeah, it is very helpful.
eyes,
Thank
so
you,
good.
Councilmember.
All right, we'll move on to council open discussion. Any open discussion? Are you saying?
I will have a
Okay. Do you want to go ahead? Okay, Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I got notified that West Taps Maintenance Company, which is a large HOA around the area, has a significant amount of funds available in a trust fund, which is $400 and some odd thousand that they're trying to release from that because it was attributed to putting sewer on some island areas and what have you. And I don't know if there's any action that the city should be looking at, because the city is the sewer provider in the area, and I don't know if it's appropriate that we are going to just, you know, let the HOA spend it on new playground equipment as opposed to sewer stuff, right? I don't know if there's anything we can do on that. Did our lawyer disappear? She's eating drinks or drinking.
Deputy Mayor Swatman, where are we on the notes?
Open discussion?
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
open
he's just
discussion.
gonna-
Thank you. All right.
No, I'm not saying anything. I did see your
So you
email
wanted
and
to
I
check
saw
into
that.
that
Yeah.
with your
that,
staff
yeah,
and give us some advice on whether we need to do anything or not, or could.
we'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McClymons.
Yeah, given the last,
Yeah, I'm helping him.
I'd like to make sure we get on a workshop that makes sense and definitely somehow figure out how to do it so it does make sense. It doesn't take a lot of time, but I would really like to come up with a clear set of rules for filling vacancies. I think we have an antiquated process that all the anachronisms in it does not serve us well. It doesn't serve the candidates well. I think we could do a better job if we seriously reviewed it and worked it. So things like sequestering candidates, we need to seriously understand how to do that if that's what we're going to do, or allowing the council to maybe interview a panel of candidates. You know, there are different ways to do this, you know, but sequestration, there are advantages there, and then a panel interview's got different advantages. But I just want to see us go back and revise our process and come up with one that we think fits a modern world where people have devices and they can listen to what's going on, and you know, or gives the council a fair chance to be able to ask questions to figure out how that candidate is going to interact with the council. Thank you.
If there's,
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
I was thinking about that too. I agree. If there's a couple of council members that wanted to draft something up, and if
Okay.
it's appropriate, that they could forward that possibly to the finance committee for a look-see, because we do personnel stuff, or that would be the first committee to take a look at a draft, and then we can move it to the workshop or something, whatever. If there's a couple of council members that wanted to work on something like that,
I would be glad to work
that'd
on
be
that.
great.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Is there a possibility for us to ask our legal counsel to draft up maybe different options or ways that people do
Well, see,
that?
They cost money, and if there's or there's a couple, if there's some council members that want to draft some stuff up, it's like, right?
I think it would
We
be
can-
valuable.
And we have to
for-
run it by them eventually.
Yeah, the council to provide what they would like to see and then have legal look it over to tighten it up, I would say.
I'll kind of look into it and see what's other cities do.
Absolutely. Plagiarize that.
No, right?
Exactly.
Hey, why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. I'm going to bring up, just for everybody's knowledge again, the Community Summit is coming up on Tuesday, April 30th. That's the 5th Tuesday of this month. It's down at Calvary Church in Sumner. We currently, I'm just throwing this out there because I know not everybody knows, I guess. The Sumner mayor has challenged the Bonney Lake mayor, so Sumner versus Bonney Lake, on who can get the most hygiene products that they could then later be dispersed to needy families and people. So unlike years past, I'd like to win this one. So whatever we can all do to pitch in. There's gonna be bins out here. I think there is a bin out here on the bottom floor. And we're putting some stuff out on social media and whatnot as well. I did a video which will show up here soon. So anyway, that stuff is moving forward. So,
I was gonna ask if there was something for us to send out.
yeah, so the city just put out something out on Facebook. So if you wanted to share that or whatnot, you're welcome to do that. Please do that. And you just go to the government website. Councilmember Baldwin.
Is this the same summit that was at Calvary previously?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said it was Tuesday, April 30th?
That's correct.
At what time?
At, I believe, it starts at 3:45, says doors open.
That's the pre-con.
4 to 5 is Key Community Leaders Cafe. So there'll be an opportunity to meet some key leaders, council members, mayors, that kind of stuff down there. And then 5 to 6, they have some breakout groups. So opportunities to do some different things. There's a community forum with the city of Sumner, helping youth stay afloat, youth mental health, taking over fresh air, vaping is the culprit, helping families stay housed, honoring our elders, perspectives of senior citizens, health and wellness strategies for all. So if you're interested in any of those breakout sessions, you can certainly attend. And then from 6:15 to 8:15, there's a dinner and presentations on the community unsung heroes. So there's an award ceremony and whatnot, and everyone who has been nominated, there's kind of in the background, it has their stuff up on the screen and whatnot.
Okay.
Talks about what they've done. Councilmember Hubler.
Just to clarify, it is not a council night because it is the 5th Tuesday.
Yes.
I made sure.
Yes. Normally we
I
would
told
cancel,
that one.
we have canceled council meetings in the past in order for us to attend, but we don't need to do that because it is the 5th Tuesday.
But I guess clarification, Sadie, if 4 of us or more want to go, we need to make sure you
I have
know
already put out a notice that there may be a possibility of a quorum. I
that.
planned ahead.
She's already planning ahead.
But I also wanted to bring up
AWC.
AWC conference opened up today for registration. So if you have not, let me know if you're going. If you can, please, because the hotel will fill up and you'll be having to go to a different hotel than everyone else.
And that's a great opportunity for council members to build relationships, talk to each other, network, and learn something at the AWC conference. They do have some good presentations there, so.
Mandatory for all new council members, right?
That is June 18th through the 21st in Vancouver, Washington.
I'm sure the clerk can get you all squared away, Councilmember Davis, on all the.
I will meet with Mr. Davis afterwards real quickly.
Yes. Thank you. Very good.
Because
Councilmember
it moves
Baldwin.
around, it goes.
So just a quick question here, as teachers, we have still days that we're working. So question about the AWC conference, is there a way to come at a later time where we're
yeah.
not
Yeah,
there?
Show us
Okay.
whenever you want.
So
I
that
was-
is an
I was
option.
Literally.
We would just let you know that we would be there on specific days. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, she advertises them from all.
Okay.
Because you can show up and leave and come and go as you like.
Yeah, you're not tied down to it necessarily.
It's the
Tuesday,
weekday.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
But
All right. Any further discussion? Okay.
Oh, I did have
Councilmember
one
Fuller.
thing, I apologize. I had, an email that came in, another leak. So I don't know if that's some,
Yeah, we did.
that, and it happened to be at the meter, so it was far away from the property. And that bill was denied a refund, so I don't know if that's something that can be, when that can be brought up or discussed, but
Is that forwarded to?
I don't know, it was
Mr.
just
Blake
put it
at
to
all?
council.
I just received it
Okay.
today, so and it said council at the top, so I don't
Yeah.
know how many people actually had a chance to read it.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, if you could forward that to us, that'd
Yeah,
be
we
great.
will.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now.
Thank you,
Perfect,
council
thank you.
member, or Deputy Mayor Swapman.
Yep.
That,
We can get Sherry to fill the council in on a snippet of that. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay. We will now have our first discussion item of the night. Madam Clerk.
This is a discussion item with action to follow for AB 24-29, motion M 24-29. The council motion would be to authorize the mayor to sign a labor agreement with the Assistant Police Chiefs Guild representing the assistant chiefs from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2026.
Any discussion before we take citizen comments? Yes, Mr. Rodovich.
Mhm.
Councilmember McClymans.
I just want to mention, I'm not going to ask, what if we don't pass this? So that would be inappropriate. I love our police.
And they won't get paid.
Thank you. Okay. Your discussion. Okay. We'll go on to citizen comments. This is your time to address the council on motion M 24-29 only. The city will now enable the video and microphone for those attending virtually. You will need to turn on your video microphones on your end if you want to be seen or heard. We will start with those who are here in person and move to the virtual comments afterwards. You have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Seems to be working. Council Mayor, I'm past Council Member Dan Decker of 201 70th Street, East Bonney, Washington. And what I'd like to do is congratulate our new council person. Choice well taken by the council, I believe. I think that the young man, when he heard his name, I kind of laughed a little bit, smiled a lot, because he looked startled. Did not expect that to happen. But you know, you did a good choice, and I believe that he's going to help and do things for the city and amaze us all. And I want to thank very much those that voted for him, to realize that you did a good job, and thank you for that. And all I can say is he will do a good job for the city of Bonney Lake. And thank you, council.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Any further comments? Okay. We'll now start those that are virtual. You have 5 names, 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please. Okay. The city will now disable all video microphones for those attending virtually. Okay, any discussion on motion M29 or M24-29? All right. Those for it, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Very good. Yes, thank you. We will now go on to our discussion item tonight on motion M24-33. Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk. Oh, we might have skipped that part, sorry.
I motion to approve AB 24-29.
Okay, there's a motion. Second. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. All right, now we're official. Okay, now we'll move on to motion M24-33. Mr. Sullivan, turn it over to you.
You see we're on page 39. Yeah. Mhm. Aaron. Aaron.
Can you get your microphone? People can't hear you, sorry.
For me? All right.
Thank you.
Can I drive now?
Good to go.
So I will step through this as quick as I can be, but I do want to explain to the council, this is kind of critical to the rest of the year's work on how we're going to adopt and prepare the comprehensive plan for the city. This is going to kind of set the foundation bedrock of that plan that we'll be bringing forward. So there's two things covered in the packet. One is growth targets and the second is growth alternatives. And they're interrelated, which is why we brought them together. So first we had to look at state and regional guidance. We are required by the Growth Management Act to have a comprehensive plan that is adopted and updated every 10 years. By statute, we have to have it completed by December 31st of 2024. Going past that date puts grants, loans, in jeopardy because we would no longer be compliant with the Growth Management Act. In addition to that, there is Vision 2050, which is adopted by the Puget Sound Regional Council, which we're also required to have our plan certified by them and have it to them by the end of the year in order to stay eligible for grants and loans through the Puget Sound Regional Council. And we currently have 2 grants that we are working with Puget Sound Regional Council on in the tunes of almost $600,000. So one of the critical items of both the Puget Sound Regional Council's Vision 2050 and Vision 20 and the Washington State Department of Commerce Growth Management Act comes around housing targets. So for years we've had to deal with overall housing population and job targets as they come from the Puget Sound Regional Council. That's nothing new, but they've looked at total number. How many total population do you need to add? How many total housing units do you need to add? And how many total population growth you need to have? They have what they call the regional growth strategy, which kind of divides the cities and up into regions across the Puget Sound region. We are in the cities and towns category. So the cities and towns category in Pierce County needs to take 7% of Pierce County's growth. So Pierce County gets that 7% number. We work with Pierce County to identify what our proportionate share of that 7% would be. New this year, because of legislation that has passed in the last 3 to 4 years, is the Washington State Department of Commerce was required by state law to establish growth targets by income band. And what I mean by that is how many housing units do we have capacity for that would be affordable to different income bands? And they go all the way from 0% area and median income, or AMI, all the way up to 120% plus area and median income. And so based on that, our housing target, it was further divided into these little groups based on how they are perceived or identified to be affordable to different housing groups. That's based on state guidance. There could be lots of debate around whether or not the state guidance is correct, but in our position, we really can't change how the state is looking at these different housing types for affordability. So both of those numbers went to the Pierce County Council, and in July of last year, established both our total targets and also our local targets. So what are our targets? So you will notice that on every slide, we have two different groups because 2049 was our centennial, or 1949 was our incorporation date. We wanted to make our comprehensive plan go all the way out through our centennial. Our certification requirement is based on 2044. So you'll see two groups because we're not as worried about 2049 and we don't have housing targets by income band out to 2049. So overall, the city's population, we need to add about 3,800 people by 2044. So tonight I'm going to, for brevity, only focus on the 2044, which is critical to certification and compliance with the Growth Management Act. So we have to add about 3,800 people, 3,900 people over the next 20 years, 24 years, going back to 2020. We have to add about a little over 1,400 housing units between 2020 and 2044. And we also have to add about 1,700 jobs. Below that, you'll see the totals. So in 2044, our projection is to have a population of around 26,000 people. The state further took those housing target numbers of 1,451 and divided them out into income bands. So for each income band, there's a total number of projected housing need that we have to demonstrate that we have capacity for. We're not required to demonstrate that we're building it. We're not required to demonstrate that the developer's building it. We are required to demonstrate capacity. And capacity under the state guidance is a function of zoning capacity, whether what's allowed in that zone. So from 0 to 30, we have 187, and you can see how it works up that all the way to 1,451. For everybody else, PHS stands for Permanent Supportive Housing. This is everything from transitional housing for homeless people to facilities that serve disabled veterans, to services that serve domestic violence, to clean and sober housing. They'll all fall into that category of permanent supportive housing. So just a quick update, so that's kind of what the state pushed on us or required us to meet. We did do a survey at the beginning of the year, and this is important because this is how we framed our two growth alternatives. We asked people what were the top 3 priorities for the city of Bonney Lake. The priorities came through with reduced traffic congestion, single family neighborhoods, and the ability to bike and walk to work. And so those were kind of our 3 top priorities as we looked at establishing the growth targets that we developed in the city. Also, we did a word cloud. I won't bore people with kind of reading this, just some ideas to pick out: small town feel, less traffic, home ownership, family oriented, planned growth, walkable. Those are kind of the catchwords that we were looking at when we were trying to develop these 2 alternatives. We also asked the community what kind of home ownership opportunities that would they support, knowing that not everybody, when they come out of college, can go right into a single family home. What are the other housing types that we could allow in our residential neighborhoods that would be ownership opportunities, but not a traditional detached home? What scored the highest was attached single family home, meaning you have 2 homes, there's a property line. We just removed the side yards between the 2 houses. Townhomes, which is more than 2. Accessory dwelling units and cottages, which are still detached structures, but just on significantly smaller lots and smaller buildings. So those were the type of home ownership opportunities that the community was supporting. We also asked where growth should occur. Not surprisingly, the biggest area getting the growth was area E, which was the Midtown area, and then B and C kind of came together. And B and C is kind of downtown is split between B and C, which is why we expect that one scored as high as well. So our no action alternative, which we based our land capacity analysis on, is the city's current zoning map. So this is the current zoning for the city as it exists today. No change. If we just ran with this model, would we meet our targets? Would we meet all of our requirements? So we had a consultant do what we call land capacity analysis. That full, in-depth, really technical memo is in the packet, along with my high-level kind of executive summary. You really want to get into the details of how land capacity analysis are done, they're there. It's a pretty hefty read. Dropping to kind of the bottom line for this to kind of keep us on pace. Under our current how our current zoning structure, we would have sufficient capacity in order to meet our overall targets. We would actually have a surplus all the way out to 2049 for both employment and housing. No issue with our current zoning. However, when you break it down by income band, there is a deficit of 423 units from a capacity standpoint for the AMI below 50%. The city, because of the view by vintage, we had a 408 units go in there between 2020 and now. Those 408 units take up and deal with our capacity from 50 to 80. Our traditional development takes care of 80 and above. So it's really the 50% AMI and below that the city is required to provide additional capacity to. So because we didn't have the capacity and we had it.
Go ahead, Councilmember Baldwin.
I'm assuming then with Terragon and what they're doing, that wouldn't fulfill those income bands, correct?
I can get to that. That's actually a really
Okay.
good segue into the next thing.
Okay.
For the land capacity analysis, we had to assume the current development agreement because that's what the current kind of zoning structure requires. Terragon's development agreement goes through the end of this year. Under the development agreement, the development for that got counted in different categories because under the development agreement, it's primarily single-family detached with a little bit of townhomes and very little multifamily. So from a capacity analysis under the land capacity, it actually contributed to the higher income groups because of the nature of the development that's envisioned in the development agreement, which is in place until the end of the year. So that's how we did the land capacity analysis because that development agreement is considered part of our current zoning structure. We looked at two alternatives. Alternative one was, what if we just did all of the up zones that are currently envisioned in our current comprehensive plan? So these are just things that were put in the comprehensive plan back in 2015 that we've never implemented. What if we continued down that path? And Councilmember Baldwin, this gets to the answer to your question.
Mm-hmm.
In both of these alternatives, we assumed that the Terragon development agreement expires at the end of the year and that the property reverts back to its R3 designation, which could be 100% multifamily. And we ran the analysis just like it was R3 vacant property, like we would with any R3 vacant property in the city. So this assumes the development agreement expires, it's R3, it's vacant, and it can be built out like any other R3 property in the city.
Does those R3 meet that AMI 50% target?
Yes, because R3 is considered high density housing, so it provides that capacity at that lower income band from a capacity standpoint, from an analysis standpoint.
So-
Not to say that they would actually rent it that way,
Of course.
but remember, we're talking about zoning capacity at this.
Right.
Councilmember Hubler.
What happens if that agreement doesn't expire and they move forward? So then we have to find a different section to rezone?
There's a lot of options. As I said, the development agreement is set to expire. Right now, we don't have development patterns moving forward. There's lots of options. There could be a renegotiation of the development agreement. There could be changes to the development agreement that support both projects. So that's left to be for further discussion. We just want to let everybody know why it changed so significantly is because of the way we treated the development agreement between the land capacity analysis and the growth alternative. The growth alternative is looking future, land capacity is looking current reg. And current reg assumes the development agreement. That's not to say the council can't negotiate a change to the development agreement and it looks different. It also doesn't mean that the development agreement doesn't expire. So there's too much to answer that question, but for an analysis, we had to kind of draw a fine line to do the analysis. So if you did every up zone the code were to envision, you would have a capacity in every category. 1,300 housing units overall, you'd have capacity in every housing group. And remember, we're talking capacity. I'm not saying that they're going to build it, but it's zoned capacity. So that would show we have 651 housing unit capacity in the higher density zones that are R3, and also the other categories. So this was one alternative. However, as I mentioned before at the beginning of this presentation, we also have to require to demonstrate compliance with Vision 2050 and the regional growth strategy. The regional growth strategy actually calls for City of Bonney Lake to slow our growth rate over the next 20 years. It calls on us to take less growth over the next 20 years so that that growth is focused to where we have transit. So that's the regional growth strategy. So region says, Bonney Lake, you've been growing way too fast. You need to slow down, have fewer housing developments, have lower growth rates in order to push that housing toward transit. So one of the alternatives, which is alternative 2, we asked the consultants to run, was what if we try to meet the Growth Management Act requirement for housing units per income band and also Vision 2050's requirement to be slowing our growth rate over the next 20 years. So we task our consultant with that. So under alternative 2, anything that was anything that was not in the midtown core or the downtown core, we zoned basically to a residential neighborhood. That is your current R1. It's called R1 low density residential. We're proposing to change the name to residential neighborhood, not changing the density. It would still be 4 to 5 units per net acre. But every area where you're outside of midtown or downtown, you would have this residential neighborhood zone, the R1 zoning. We would recommend as part of that, in order to meet other requirements, that you allow those other housing types. So townhouses, cottages, attached single family, so that there's additional home ownership opportunities. Because remember, there's 2 issues with development. There's the type of development, which is what does the structure look like, and the density. And it's usually the density that is the driver of concerns. So we're not proposing any changes to the density. It would stay 4 to 5 units per acre. We would allow property owners more diversity in the types of housing they could build, but they would still all be a residential structure on its own lot. The difference between townhomes and attached single family and detached single family is we don't have side yards. So a townhome is there's a property line and every structure sits on its own property. The building and the property can be owned in fee, and the same with cottages. So that's to meet some other requirements of the Growth Management Act, but we wouldn't change the density. It would still be 4 to 5 units per net acre. So same number of residences can be built. Under this, we also assumed the Tarragon development agreement expires and the Wazoo property can be built out at a normal R3. And then we also focused our development in downtown, which is another key component of the regional growth strategy, is to focus development into the centers. And surprising to everybody, it worked. We would have a housing capacity total target all the way out to 2049. We would have an employment capacity out to 2049, and we would have surplus capacities in all of our housing income bands. So the question that we want to answer tonight, and what we'll be bringing back as kind of a motion, because this will set the stage of how we write the policies, how we begin to do the maps, is does the council want to proceed with the alternative 1 option, which is basically upzone everything like we envisioned 10 years ago? Option 2, which would be focus the development in midtown and downtown, letting the areas outside of that be residential neighborhood with a little bit more flexibility in housing type. Those are our 2 options that we are looking at. Not to say there couldn't be a hybrid option that we throw in the mix, but that's what we're looking for council direction and be able to answer questions tonight. I tried to do that as quick as I could, so hopefully you picked up on all the information.
Good job. Councilmember McClymans.
How many units can fit in R3 that Tarragon owns?
I think the last time that they came and made a proposal to city council, they were looking around 1,000 units, 1,100 units. The maximum density right now with the R3 and the R3 overlay is 20 units per net acre. Our current R3, straight R3 without the overlay, has no maximum density. So you could technically be as dense as you would like.
Councilmember Baldwin.
So 20 units per square acre, that's apartments.
Correct.
Okay.
If they wanted to build them.
Councilmember Hubler.
What is the zoning for that property right now?
Currently, it's zoned R3 with an R3 overlay, which caps the density at 20 units per acre. But there's also a development agreement which was adopted by the city council in 2008 that set out specific, you can't, our position was you can't have more than 672 units under the development agreement, which is significant lower than what I think the underlying density would allow. And you had to have primarily single family with a little bit of townhomes and a very few multifamily, which is why when we did the land capacity analysis, it went a different direction.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
So on you mentioned, option 2 there, you were talking about, 4 to 5 units net per acre or something like that, right?
That's currently what's allowed in the R1.
Well, currently what's, with the zoning that you were talking about residential, right? So they can group those together, or they can, they can squish them, if that's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, what we were proposing is that we don't change the underlying density. It stays at 4 to 5 units per net acre.
Mhm.
We just expand the type of housing that's allowed all to housing types that are,
And that's under option 2.
that are house on property.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
but it's, creating a bunch of rentals amongst a bunch of homeowners. Yeah, in my estimation, likely.
I
That's the idea. Was there a recommendation from the planning commission?
The planning commission recommended alternative 2.
No. Was there any discussion at any, and I don't know if it matters, but one of the things that I keep hearing is there's a significant issue with home ownership in the jurisdictions that have large corporate ownership of homes, and it's basically making it impractical for people to buy homes. And that's probably not in a planner's realm.
Yeah, regulating who can purchase property would be way outside of.
Sure, yeah, I just didn't know how you guys, because that's what in reality, makes a large hit on price of house.
Mhm.
Councilmember Kleinmans.
Yeah, I think setting the income bands is saying who can buy property, right? I mean, the reality is we're gonna change zoning for these options, right? For option 1 and 2, we have to change zoning. We cannot meet our targets with the current zoning. So we're gonna change the rules on current property owners to meet these standards. And we're doing that because the state's decided to create these bands to say who can buy property. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that's a bad idea. I know you're shocked and surprised that I would disagree with this, with the governor and the legislature, but that is like a bizarre, radical overreach to reach into existing property owners' rights and say, you got to build housing for this income band.
Well, as I said, we don't have to build the housing. We just have to, for our purposes, for compliance, we just have to show capacity. And that capacity is based on the type of housing allowed in the zone.
Right, yeah.
So if 20 years from now, the R3 builds out and it builds out at its all market rate, we're not going to control that. For this compliance kind of check, it's just a matter of R3 is assumed to provide housing for these housing bands. Do you have enough capacity in your city for that? I will say alternative 2 could be reduced in the number of zoning changes. As I said, most of the zoning changes you see on the screen above me are where we're trying to simplify our code. And instead of having an R1 and an R2, is simply to go to an R1 that's residential neighborhood. The council could say, keep the 2 zones, and almost everything here in yellow that is shown as kind of residential neighborhood would just stay as R2. And then really the only zoning changes that we would be talking about would be a few around downtown, and then changing the view by vintage from a commercial zone to an R3 zone. So really that's not a real rezone. That's kind of just cleaning up the map. So if the council would say, hey, we prefer to make as few zoning changes as we'd like, as we can, we can keep the R2 zone. We were just trying to take this as an opportunity to kind of collapse our zoning structure to make it less cumbersome and having fewer zones. But we can definitely keep the R2 because that's a higher density zone. It would not change us below. It would still work.
I think Councilmember Fullerton had something.
Yeah, so, the R1 is the most restrictive because that is for single family homes only, correct?
Correct. Currently in R1, you can do single family homes at ADUs.
Okay, and so you're adding the ability to put townhomes or cottages as well as a single family home on an R1. So that would be 4 to 5 per unit or 4 to 5 units per net acre as it is now.
Correct.
More than that, though, right?
Well, no.
R1 is currently 4 to 5 units.
So
per
the
unit.
They meant like a fourplex.
No, because
Fourplex
those
wouldn't be allowed.
we're not supposed to do rentals. It has to be purchasing opportunities. Is that correct?
Right. The proposal that we discussed was doing townhomes, which by our definition is a house on a lot. The difference between those from a zoning perspective, and these are also all built under the International Residential Code, which is the same code that we build single family homes under, is that the side property that, if you drive into a new subdivision, that 8 to 10 feet between homes is basically eliminated and they're allowed to touch. But the fee and the building are owned in fee. And by doing that, it's a lower price structure. We were just trying to find ways to create additional home ownership opportunities, which is not a fourplex, but with an acre of property, you could still only build 4 homes
So, but.
on an acre, whether they're deep.
Not gonna be restricted, if they own an R1 property, they're not gonna be restricted if they only want to put, say they have 20 acres, but they only want to put 1 home there
They could do that.
because they want to have an estate
They could do that.
or a homestead.
Well, but they have
Okay.
to be zoned as R1.
Right, so then
Yeah.
if we have, do we have
I'm not,
in the areas that you're talking about making an R3, are any of those R1s that are going to be restricted that they couldn't build a homestead?
No, the areas that we predicted that we show in downtown going to R3 are currently R2 zone, and they already have kind of some multifamily, either duplex or rental unit on it. We would just be zoning those to R3.
Okay, so in R3, that's going to allow for more units per net acre than R2.
Correct. And the only area that we show that increased density is right where I'm circling my cursor, right in the downtown area. And if you were to drive out there today, there's already multifamily units on those. They're townhome. I think they are duplexes today, built in the mid 60s. So like I said, we were trying to find ways to add this additional capacity. The only other R3 zone change we make is for the View by Vintage. It's currently zone C2. And we're just moving that from C2 to R3. But C2 and R3 have the same density. So it's really it's a mapping clarification, not a change. Actually, we reduce under alternative 2, you actually reduce the number of properties zoned R3, which I think gets to a question that Councilmember Quimans has always had, is when we go from a higher density to a lower density, how does that impact property owners? We've actually had homeowners in that area contacting us, not happy with the R3 because it doesn't allow them to build single family homes. So we've actually had probably 3 or 4 property owners a little frustrated with us that it was zoned to R3 about 10 years ago. So there is that. There's actually a down zone of that area. Like I said, the idea was that you would move forward with kind of focusing that growth in Midtown and downtown by keeping as much of the property in the city kind of in this residential neighborhood with the same number of units per lot. So if you have an acre of property right now, you can come in and do a subdivision or do it with the planning staff and build 4 houses on that property. The only thing that we're talking about changing to meet some of these other requirements in the Growth Management Act is to allow for a townhouse, which means if you have an acre of property, you can build 4 units. So you would still have 4 units. Those units would be fee simple units with the house and the property could be owned in fee. We can't control if someone decides to rent their home out or any property out. This also gets to a question that I think Councilmember McClymans has raised to me years ago, is what happens if someone has to protect critical areas? This is an alternative where if you're having to protect critical areas and your lot's getting smaller and smaller, that you have another alternative to meet the same density in that same area. So it's trying to balance those competing interests. Sorry, Councilmember Baldwin, I saw your hand go up.
So a single acre property that can fit 4 units, I'm not really understanding, is that R2 or is that R3?
That's R1.
Does R1 to fit 4 units on a single acre?
Correct. The current zoning for R1 is 4 to 5 units per net acre.
You're proposing that we change it to R2?
No, I'm proposing that you eliminate the R2. The properties that are currently R2 would go to what we call a residential neighborhood, and all of those properties would have the same density classification, 4 to 5 units per net acre. We would allow for different housing types, but not an increase in density. Not fourplexes, not duplexes, not triplexes, but attached single-family homes, which means that there's just no side property line. There's actually a property line. There's just no side yard, or townhomes in which there's more than 2 attached, but no underlying side yard. That's really the big difference.
So where are the R2 properties then?
Everything that's pretty much highlighted in yellow up there are currently zoned R2, and we would propose to make them.
More
The
strict
yellow
down
is
to it.
R2?
So the yellow,
The yellow looks like it's R1 because
Yeah,
it says.
it is
because that's the zoning change. So here's the current zoning map. You see the orange here?
Yellow being R1.
Yeah, yellow being R1. Do you see the orange?
Mhm.
Yes.
That's R2.
Okay, those would change.
That's
So
currently what it is right as of today.
how many can the R2 have?
6 to 9 units, or sorry. Yeah, 6 to 9 units per net acre.
And there isn't a side-by-side comparison of like this map with the other ones? Because you were showing us the other map, correct?
Yeah, so if you look at here, everything that's in orange is currently R2. And if you go to alternative 2, everything that's in bolded yellow is an R2 zone or an R3 zone going to residential neighborhood.
Bolded yellow with all the lines inside of it.
Yes, those are the parcel lines.
Those are R2.
Those are currently zoned R2 with the exception of this little area here, which is zoned R3.
Okay, I'm just trying to identify like what is the actual change between the 2 maps. I guess I just have to keep going back and forth to them.
Well, I get Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes.
So for in your mind,
Yeah.
on this map, if it's in bolded yellow, it's orange predominantly on the other map. So this area right here, this area right here, this area right
What's
here.
the change?
The changes were going from R2 to residential neighborhood. So you're going from a higher density zone to a lower density zone.
But I thought you're trying to increase the density in order to go with the comprehensive plan.
Under this alternative,
Yes.
we're able to do that as long as we do the higher density development in Midtown. Am I answering the
It
question?
does. Yes. Yes.
Kind of,
Where in Midtown are we
Yeah,
increasing?
where are we?
we're not,
Can you show us on the map?
we're not increasing density. We're just assuming that,
It's like off of Locust.
We're-
The
and-
blue.
so in downtown here, we're assuming a little bit of upzoning here on Locust, where there's the townhome, the duplexes, also kind of over here next to the fire station. And then in Midtown, there's actually no upzoning. It's just assuming that the development agreement expires and Tarragon is building out at the current allowed zoning that would be allowed if the development agreement expired.
Councilmember Hubler.
I was on the planning commission as we were kind of pushing forward on this and asking all these same questions and just kind of help like the alternative two actually helps us to have less apartments, less multifamily.
Like spread out,
dwellings.
basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
so in neighborhoods that are currently allow for fourplexes and triplexes and apartments, those would be zoned down to single-family homes and townhomes, which it helps. A townhome is purchasable. So if a young family can afford a townhome, but they can't afford a big, full-size house, then they would be able to hopefully afford something in the townhome side rather than just renting from a renter in a fourplex or an apartment or something like that. So it's kind of it's that slowing down the growth side of the city rather than ramping it up constantly, adding more apartments, which I know that's one thing that we've all talked about. We don't want to see more apartments. I like how our city is now, but being able to allow those zones to downsize so there's less homes in them, less instead of it was 6+ on an acre of land, it would be 4 to 5. So and they would be homes that somebody can purchase rather than just rent.
Or the, back to the residential zone kind of thing that we're talking about, right? What types of dwellings are in those again?
So currently in the R1, you can do single family and you can do ADUs. In the R2, you can do pretty much anything. What we're proposing in order to kind of, in the R2 zone.
Yeah, in R2, you can't have apartments though.
Yeah, you
You
can.
can't have flats, can you?
Yeah, you can have 6 to 9 units per net acre.
You can do duplexes and I don't think you can do apartments, but you can do like duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, those types of things. So what we're proposing is trying to not change what people like about the city of Bonney Lake, meet our requirements under the Growth Management Act, and address one of the fundamental questions that we keep hearing, which is how do we address housing affordability? And one of the things that we always are hearing is we add the housing affordability issues. And so one of the things that we thought was if we could allow for property owners to have more flexibility in how they develop their property, meaning more options.
Developers, by the way, but FYI, okay.
I mean, we have, in my department, we have people who come in who are developers, and we also have single-family homeowners who are splitting their property up into 3 properties to build 3 different homes. So it's a ranging group. So I just have to say property owners.
That's an interesting language.
Because it is a range. I can point to 4 subdivisions right now, 4 little short plots that we're doing that is just a homeowner wanting to do it so they can build 1 additional house on their property. So, but what it proposes is it says you could do townhomes, which is an ownership opportunity, and attached single family, which is an ownership opportunity, and cottages, which are still detached, just smaller lots.
And you said no duplexes?
No duplexes, because that would be 2 units on 1 lot.
That's 2 units?
A duplex is considered 2 residential units.
But yet you can build a townhome that's multiple?
It would be still 1 unit per 1 lot. Each townhome has to sit on its own individual lot so that someone can purchase the ground and the building, buy it together. There's not 1 property with 4 buildings sitting on it.
But right now you can't put that duplex in an R1.
And you couldn't do it under this alternative as well.
Why is a duplex different than a townhome? It's still like the duplex is connected. And so it would be one body.
You can't purchase
like
1 unit and the land underneath.
So you're using that as a rental. So you're renting half of your house out
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So you can't you can't have a rental. What about an ADU?
ADUs we have to allow by state law, and they can be rentals.
They can.
Yes.
Then what if I want to have a duplex?
Call
Do I
it,
have to separate it and call it an ADU and
call
then
it
I
a
can,
townhome.
and then I can rent it?
You could, in theory, you could do an ADU. Like I said, we were trying to stay consistent with what the council directed us with. If you want to allow for duplex in the R1, that's totally a town council call. But yes, you could do a house with an attached duplex, and rent one or both units. And I have to allow that by state law.
Councilmember McClymonds.
Yeah, so on the residential, the new residential zone, I'm a property owner. I own an acre. And so. Nice. I know, it's like awesome. Yeah.
You could put 4 units on your acre.
Rich man.
So now I can take that acre and I could have my house in the northwest corner. And I could put 3 townhomes in the southeast corner on the smallest lot possible and sell each townhome.
Correct.
Mhm.
Not currently, but under alternative two, that's what you would be allowed.
Alternative too. How much is that smallest piece of property for that middle townhome?
It's going to depend on how big the townhome is and how deep in width. It's something that we have to work out during the design phase.
Okay, so I could sell a townhome that has a front porch and a backyard. They can park a car in, but there's no side yards
Correct.
because it's one of them.
Shotgun house.
What?
Shotgun.
So the best thing about townhomes is, yeah, shotgun houses from in the south or in New York City and Boston, the old brownstones, those are townhomes.
Yep. Lived in one for a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any other questions or direction?
I think he's looking for options, whatever, right?
Well, so then you were talking about the vintage view.
The view by vintage,
Yeah. What did you call it?
the view by vintage.
View by, yeah, that's a hard one for me. View by vintage. And so there are property owners that are near that wanted to put a home and they were not able to because they were zoned too high, or?
That's this area. Kind of if you were to go to what junction, if you were to go to 192nd instead of, 198th, instead of going to Lowe's and down to Tahale, you went the other way. There is a small little chunk of the city between 410 and Sumner Buckley Highway where it's all zoned R3. And we've had a couple of people there's vacant property in there that want to build a single family home and can't because R3, you can't build single family homes. There's also a property on the corner, the one that famously was not cleaned up for 20 years that we finally got cleaned up. They've been trying to figure out how to develop that property and it's hard to do anything other than single family. And so
This would allow for that?
this would allow for that.
It's more homeownership opportunities rather than more apartments.
Mhm.
And as much as it sucks, because I have young kids that are living at home because they can't afford to live out there in this world, but just trying to find more opportunities for home ownership too.
Mhm.
I think, I think alternative 2 is what is closer to what the council
The least invasive.
wants. Exactly right. Yeah, it's not perfect, right? But it seems to be what is closer to what we've been after. But it's your decision. Councilmember Fullerton.
So basically, if we say we like alternative 2, that doesn't mean it's like all set in stone and we actually have to do this. This is just letting the state know that, hey, we've rezoned some areas where if we proceed with this alternative, bend the trend, then at the end of the day, at 2050, we would be compliant if we were to proceed with this. We're just showing
Yeah.
I mean, does this like now, if we say yes, then this literally is going to start happening?
Well, I would,
tomorrow?
no, it wouldn't start happening tomorrow. It's how we would build the rest of the comprehensive plan. And when the council adopts the comprehensive plan at the end of the year, they would adopt a future land use map that's looking kind of like this. And then we would be bringing a zoning map looking like this as well, plus any zoning changes in order to implement this ideal. You will never get to a date where they say, yep, you're in compliance. And the reason is because they'll say you're in compliance for this comprehensive plan. 10 years from now, in 2034, I have to do this all again. Every 10, actually, I have to do it again in 5 years. We have to do an update. And then 5 years after that, we have to do a whole new periodic update.
Can we,
So it's a rolling target.
can we just ask the state to be happy and stop? Just wondering.
I'm assuming.
Can we send a message? Just leave people alone and let them live their life with the property that they purchased and that they pay taxes on. So this is very difficult because I am one of 7 people, and I don't think that any of us here want to make a decision for homeowners
I would say
in Bonney Lake.
option 2 keeps the city as similar to is today,
Yeah.
knowing that you'll have the change with the Tarragon property being a high density residential zone.
Mhm.
It allows for more opportunities for homeowners to do different things with housing on their property. I know Deputy Mayor Swatman always says when I say that, but it does. If you're a homeowner and you have an acre of property, as Councilmember Kleiman said, you could have one lot for your house, and if you want to sell off little properties for smaller homes, you could. If that's really a concern of the council, with changing these R2s to R1, we could also leave them as R2. We are trying to achieve the objective of streamlining our zoning code and making it smaller, making it more nimble, by eliminating the number of zones that we have in the city.
I truly, me personally, I like the idea of getting rid of R2s because it does give us more opportunity for homeownership. If we have a townhome, then it's just take 2 pieces of property and you're straddling that house. Instead of having a fence line in between the 2, you just have a wall. And so then somebody can own this side and somebody can own this side, and they still own their property that their house sits on. So it gives us less housing, which I think is the direction that we've been kind of going towards, and just more opportunity for those homeowners.
I do have a problem with, like, if you're gonna allow for townhomes, cottages, ADUs, then I do feel like people should have the opportunity to have a duplex on their R1s. I think restricting that would be improper.
Yeah, but
I mean, all you're doing is adding a yard on the side versus, putting another unit next to it.
That is a total policy call, and I will look to the council for direction.
So thinking about this though, the option 2 there, right? Residential zoning, you're talking townhomes. If you're in an existing situation, you're a single family home and there's a lot next to you, right? That's undeveloped. And then the homeowner is going to develop that lot that's next to the single family, right? They can apparently put a townhome on that single lot.
Well, if it's just a townhome on one lot, it would just be a detached single-family home.
They have to have 2
But if the vacant lot next door to them is only a half acre,
Sure.
then no, because you have to have 4 to 5 units per net acre.
2 lots, basically.
You have to have, that's what I'm saying is what controls the number of units isn't whether it's a townhome or a duplex or single family. That's not what controls the density, the number. What controls the number is that 4 to 5 units per net acre. You could say apartments are allowed in the R1 and have it 4 to 5 units per net acre. And the most you could do on an acre is a fourplex, right? So that's really, you have to kind of, I know it's counterintuitive when you talk apartment, you talk, oh, it's big and dense. It's really the density determination that drives how many units could be on that small piece of property. If you have the same acre and it's 4 to 5 units per net acre.
No, I'm talking about real world scenario to try to wrap my head around that, right? With this vacant lot.
So if the vacant lot was an acre,
No, it's a lot smaller than that, right? They're small. Were there 20,000 square feet?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, so at 20,000 square feet, they may be able to get to a detached or either two detached single family homes, or
I don't know why I can't build my townhome on that.
because townhomes more than 3, so you'd have to have at least enough acreage to have 3 lots.
It's more than 3. What?
So if you have 2, the way our code works, the way the code would work is if you have just 2 attached units, that would be attached single family homes. If you have more than 2, you have 3, and they're all on their own lot, that would be townhomes. So you'd have to have at least, quickly doing my math in my head, around probably 22 to 23,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Lot.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because my scenario, I'm pretty concerned that a single family homeowner is going to take the lot beside them and build a multifamily unit on that, which is instantly a rental. So, something for the council to think about. So try to figure your way out of that one.
So in order to, I just did the math real quick. In order to do the smallest townhome, which is 3 connected together, all on their own lots.
Why they're 3 though, but just because you're just saying they're 3?
Well, I'm just saying,
My townhome has 2 units.
then it'd be attached single family by the code. But to get 3 units, whatever you want to call them, to get 3 units, you would have to have at least 26,000 square feet. To get 2 units, you would have to have a lot that's at least 17,000 square feet. Most lots in the city who are newer subdivisions are 7 to 8,000 square feet. So if you're that small, you're never going to be higher than anything other than ADUs.
Oh, yeah, but see, in the scenarios, and sorry for dragging this out because I'm going to drag this out forever. We're not concerned with like the Sky Island, frankly, right? Because you're not doing anything over there. It's an ADU environment. Nobody's going to build extra homes really per se much of anywhere in Sky Island because they're built like right next to each other. You don't have the room. You're talking about most of the north side of the city where there's these extensive lots that can be put together, everything like this. And you're talking about, not even in Councilmember Hubler's neighborhood, because obviously you're not going to put another home in there, right? And across the street at the Ptarmigan Ridge, you're not going to put another home in there because they're built out. But you get out towards the island areas and you get out towards your area.
Quinn Street, right? On Quinn Street, you could buy up 3 of those homes and then put in like a bunch
of multifamily stuff. I know people are gonna own these things. Oh, right. But they're not, in my opinion, they're developers doing that because that's what they do. So that's fine. I guess it is what it is. The state's gonna come down a little while and they're gonna eliminate single family zoning anyways. They're gonna make it, I suspect, like it or not, right?
Yep.
So much a hubbub. I don't know. Pointless. Sorry. Done.
Open up some property right here on the way up to the mountain. See a lot of government property up there.
Exactly. Right. Is there some direction that we can give Mr. Sullivan?
It sounds like alternative 2 is kind of the leading candidate. How about I say?
There you go. The most qualified candidate.
It is on the agenda for next week to actually be kind of, this is the direction. We can put it on as a full council item with alternative 2 written in the motion. And we can go from there. We are trying to balance these things. We understand the concerns from the city council and the residents, which is why we looked at alternative 2 and not just, hey, upzone everything.
Right.
We are trying to be respectful to that, and it's not easy. No,
nothing's easy.
I think it helps, member Davis will be able to kind of dive in and catch up too. And then everybody can look into this a little bit more and
I'm willing to meet with anybody if you want to set up a time with
Yeah,
me.
there you go. There's some nightly reading for you.
appreciate your diligence on this.
Even if it's just to vent how frustrated you are with the state, I will gladly have that meeting and listen.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next item, which is the agenda modification. Madam Clerk.
This is a discussion item with action to follow for AB 24-28, Resolution R 24-28. The council motion would be to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Pierce County Security Incorporated to provide security officers at Allen York Park in 2024.
Thank you.
So moved.
Oh,
For a second.
second.
Okay. Councilmember Baldwin, did you want to explain maybe what this is?
Sure, I can explain it again. I did explain it earlier in this meeting,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but I can explain it
I'm
again.
sorry. You don't have to.
Um,
Everyone knows. I'm sorry.
okay.
I did not mean-
I did already explain.
You did, yeah. It's been a long night.
It has.
All right. Is there any discussion on this issue from council? Okay. We'll go on to citizen comments. So this is your time to address the council on resolution R24-28 only. The city will now enable a video microphone for those attending virtually. You'll need to turn on your video microphones on your end if you are wanting to be seen or heard. We will start with those who are here in person and move to the virtual comments afterward. You have 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please. See anybody coming up? All right. We'll now start with those that are virtual. You have 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please. Okay, I don't see anyone coming forward. The city will now disable all video and microphones for those attending virtually. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of resolution R24-28, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Very good. And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Hey.